All right, we are back. How you doing? Greetings. Uh, Welcome, Black Bear News. Please remember to like the video and make sure that you are still subscribed. All important. I'll wait till a few people get in here. Yeah, I apologize for the Rockfin thing. I know some people were looking forward to the Rockfin live stream yesterday, but I couldn't make it work. So, I don't know what to say. I did all the steps that they told me to do to make the stream work on the website, and for whatever reason, it just never connected. So I don't know if it's something on my end or something on their end, or I have no idea. I will continue to try and figure out that situation as best I can, but I don't know who's really doing a lot of tech support right now. I guess I could email them and ask them. What's going on, or why isn't it working, or can you help me? Please help me. Oh, Trish Kaiser, good morning. Cindy Seeley, good morning. Good morning to you all. Somewhat earlier than I usually do it. Somewhat. Although it doesn't really matter because everybody's on different time zones, so. James Campbell. Michael Campbell says, I am not folks. You're not folks? What are you then? Peoples? Great apes? I always find that a really funny term, great apes. It's almost like remember there was like a cartoon character called Grape Ape? Sounds like Great Apes. Sounds like Grape Ape. But yeah, Great Ape sounds like a character, like a superhero. The Great Ape. I don't know why it's funny to me, but whatever. We are all just apes, and all apes thinking we're great. That's all we are. Hello, everybody. Mary Jane, Jay Ackert, Poppy Davis, Trish Kaiser, Luke out. Good handle. Mary Jane, did I get you? Exactly. Nonviolence protects the state. Yeah, so, I had a little discussion on the last video about the fact that YouTube is really ramped up, kind of keeping people from seeing my videos lately. I don't know what's going on. So a lot of people have reported that they are not getting notifications when I go live. If you follow me on Twitter, which is Black Bear News, the number 1, at Black Bear News, the number 1, I will try and post the start time of my live streams, hopefully an hour before. I'll try and do it, give you guys plenty of time. Maybe more than that. Maybe I'll post the start time of the next one, right after we're done with this video. But so if you guys are not getting the messages or the notifications, or they're not showing you that I'm live, if you follow me on Twitter, you'll get the start time of the video and you'll know when to tune in. Another funny thing is that they're not showing how many people are really viewing, because there's probably as many people are in the chat as are viewing at the moment, and I find that it's usually, like a fifth of the people viewing are in the chat generally. So I don't know that they're necessarily showing all the people that are watching. I don't know. The dude, Poppy Davis, Pop, everybody, Jay Ackert, everybody coming in. Kameshwari Kate, how you doing? You just received a notification. You are here. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. It's weird. And then somebody else told me that they couldn't super chat. They were trying to give me a super chat, and the YouTube wouldn't let them. So there's a workaround for that. So if you can't super chat, you can always just go to my PayPal, and whatever you're going to super chat me, you can just put it on my PayPal. The link is in my description box, or Venmo, whatever, or Square, Cash App. You know, it's just not as fun because you can't see, you know, I can't see your super chat or whatever. But Mary Jane says great apes because humans are so insecure they must add great. Exactly. We are an insecure lot, aren't we? And we must, you know, tell ourselves and everybody else how awesome we are all the time. We must instill our superiority in every single thing that we do in all of our language. You know, we must be the dominant life form. And to go back to my point I was making in the video the other day about humanitarianism always comes at the cost of other creatures and the environment. So we see humanitarianism as the highest, the highest way to be. And, you know, I'll agree with that on some levels, but our humanitarian, it just always trumps. It always trumps the environment. It always just trumps other animals. So now I know that we definitely have more than 10 people. We have more than 10 people in the chat, and yet we only have 10 people watching. So this is absolutely incorrect on YouTube's part. They're trying to tell you that only 10 people are watching. So thank you, the dude, super chat test. It works. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, I've been getting super chats, and people have been super chatting me, but somebody just told me in the comment section of the last video that they couldn't YouTube wasn't letting them super chat for whatever reason. So that's odd to me. But anyways, yeah, what was I saying? So yeah, humanitarianism is always more important than anything else. And, to extend, like, humanitarianism is all wrapped up in our standard of living, or, how our safety, right? So even if you talk about, like, living in a different way that might not be impactful to the environment, people start asking, like, well, what about, what's everybody going to eat? Is everybody going to have medical care? Is everybody going to have electricity? Is everybody going to have the things that we assume that, or we expect to have, or we insist on having, right? So, and if you suggest that possibly we might not have those things, like we might not have medical care, or we might not be able to extend our lives at all times and at all costs. Oh my God, what are you suggesting? Are you some kind of fascist, or are you what are you talking about? Making decisions about who lives and who dies, or who gets medical care or who doesn't, or et cetera, et cetera. Are you talking about eugenics? What are you talking about, right? Like, so it's a slippery slope. Of course, this whole conversation is a weird conversation to even, like, try to parse on a philosophical level. But the truth is that, the universe, Mother Nature itself, provides us with a bounty of things to keep us alive. But Mother Nature also provides us with guardrails to tell us when we have escaped our boundaries, the boundaries of living, living in harmony with the earth, or living in balance with nature, right? There are natural guardrails in place. There are natural things in place to tell us that we've gone too far. We're doing too much. We've taken too much. And so, nature has rules, and if we don't respect nature's rules, then nature will enforce those rules, and that's going to be very non-humanitarian. That's going to be very, not nice to humans. So we can either adopt those, something like adopt those rules, or take on those rules, or enforce those guardrails ourselves, or acknowledge those guardrails, or implement those guardrails, or whatever. We could do that ourselves and say, and take that on and say, like, look, this is logical. This is the way that humans should live because it's in harmony with the earth and it's respecting the boundaries of the earth. We could do that ourselves, or we could just say, well, no, we're going to do whatever we want because we're humans, and humanitarianism. Whatever benefits humans is the highest good that we could always possibly think about or do. Right? If we live that way, then nature is going to say, I don't think so. So, Poppy Davis says, I agree. That's why I don't consider myself a humanist either. Seems self-centered. Yeah, I have this really kind of icky relationship with the word humanism, or even humanitarian ideals, and politically, I'm all for humanitarianism. I'm the most humanitarian, I think, I can, as far as taking care of human beings and their needs and their wants. I'm pretty damn humanitarian. I'm pretty outspokenly humanitarian. I think that the least of us should get the most help. At all times. I think the least of us should be taken care of. That should be automatic. And that's a very humanitarian stance to take. But at the same time, humanitarianism, again, always comes at the cost of nature, and always comes at the cost of other animals, and even actually comes at the cost of other humans if we're really willing to be honest about it, right? Because the humanitarianism of the West, keeping everybody alive in our standard of living, actually requires that other people suffer at the moment, right? At this moment in time, other people are suffering so that we can have humanitarianism for the West, and maybe, abject poverty for the third world or whatever. So, it's just something I like to think about and bring up, because it's something that people are going to have to discuss sooner or later, or they won't discuss it. And then, things like a pandemic crisis will come along and start threatening humans, and we'll be like, oh my God, why is this happening to us? This is the worst thing ever. Things that much bigger than a pandemic are going to happen to us, right? A lack of food to eat because the temperature of the earth is too high to grow food anymore. That's certainly going to impact humans on a really massive scale. And, there's going to be plenty of blaming and finger pointing, and, of course it'll be, Trump's fault, or whoever is the replacement for Trump, it'll be somebody's fault. But golly gee, it won't be humans humaning. It won't be their fault. It won't be humans being humanitarians. It won't be their fault. Jay Ackert, human overshoot should get a warning. Invalid parameter. Indeed. I like that. Just like, my idea about having no-go zones for the wild, for wilderness, right? No-go zones. It should be like, look, no trespassing. Sorry, you don't belong here. This area is for nature. This is for nature. This is not for humans. Sorry. Invalid parameter. Sorry, you cannot breach this perimeter. And there's a lot of people that are like, "Oh my God, how dare you say that?" I don't know. Yeah, of course, because you're on some level, you believe in human supremacy. So, even your naturalists believe in human supremacy. Oh, how dare you say we can't go somewhere and we can't enjoy all of nature? Maybe not. Maybe you don't. Mary Jane says no-go zones. Hell yes. I'm just saying, if we really want to be serious about this, if we really want to re-wild places, we're going to have to just set up some areas and say, like, no, nobody allowed. Nobody, no one, nothing. Zero, zilch, nada. No human touches in this area, Mary Jane, the first world is all that matters, indeed. And how we deem, how we live is how everyone should live, right? I mean, our whole goal with, with other nations, but, after we plunder and exploit them, after we plunder and exploit countries for their cheap labor and their resources, our next goal is to bring them up to our standard of living. If you can just consider the insanity of that. Mary Jane says to eradicate anything and everything we do not like, be it animal, plant, or other human beings. We demonize each other and we demonize the entire living world. Yep. And we turn it into a commodity. The entire world is for buying and selling. This land is my land, and I'm going to, I own it now. This land is my land. This land is not your land until you pay me cash monies. Right? We own these forests. We own this water. We own these fish. We own these animals. We own the sky. We own, we own it all. So somebody's owning it all. Somebody planting their flag or drawing their lines around a certain area. This is mine. We own it. We control it. And you can have some of this for a price. So the entire earth has been commodified. And is not able to just be the earth free of ownership. Jody Connolly says, I'm ready to embrace whatever happens. The dude says, raise your hand if you haven't eaten anything produced by agriculture yet today. Going to the root of humanism and control in order to mitigate real risks to self and others. It's only natural, ironic. Yeah, that's a good point. Going to the root of humanism and control in order to mitigate real risks to self and others. Right. So like, if you really wanted to extend this compassionate, that's the other thing about humanism is rooted in this, this idea of compassion towards others, to your fellow humans. But if you want to extend that compassion to the rest of the planet, you actually have to minimize, you have to realize that there's only so much compassion that you can extend to humans, right? Because you have to if you make other parts of the planet, things outside of you, if you make it as important as humans, if you make the well-being of the rest of the planet as important as humans, you're going to have to at some point diminish the importance of humans in order to be in balance with that, right? So you're going to have to stop extending the compassion to humans and realize that there's a guardrail in order to really and truly. It's the same with extending compassion to humans who have less, right? So this is the same idea. It's the people with wealth have all the wealth, and they're like, oh my God, I must protect my wealth. This is my wealth. I earned it. I own this wealth. This is mine. I deserve this. And when you talk about extending compassion to people with less, well, that means that you, on some level, and you can see it in our entire political system, right? The people in control, the people with power, the people with all the wealth are so absolutely panicked, horrified by the thought that their wealth might be diminished by giving to those who have the least amongst us, right? The people that must be taken care of, that should be taken care of, right? That almost insists that the people with all the control and all the wealth and all the power give up a little bit of that wealth and control and power. And they can't even give up this much. They can't even give up 5% of their wealth or their power, or even 10%, in order to help those who are the least amongst us, right? So that's exactly how humans view their dominion over the planet, right? If you actually treat the environment or other animals with the actual compassion and the care necessary for a healthy, livable planet, you're going to actually have to give up some of your things, some of your wealth and your control and your power and your safety and your right to live as long as you possibly can, and use all the resources at our disposal in order to keep everybody alive as long as possible, right? You're going to have to give a little bit of that up. But as soon as somebody says something about, humans might have to actually give up some of their dominion over the earth, oh my God, what a crazy lunatic you might be. The dude says, obviously this instinct has run wildly amok, but I don't pretend it should not exist. This is why it's a conundrum, an unsolvable problem. Yeah, I don't know. Mary Jane, yeah, I would love to read it. What's the book? Tell me, because I might have it. I'm just so you don't send me a book I already have. You can send anything to blackbearnews@gmail. Darren Atchison, goal is 51% not touched by humans. Actually, a goal agreed upon. And I agree with that. I think that's a great idea. When I first heard that idea, there's obvious shortcomings in it, because we could absolutely, run amok on the other 50% of the planet, and just, our destruction kind of knows no bounds, because if we pump enough carbon into the air, obviously that affects, all the air of the earth, not just 50% of the air. If we, pollute all the oceans with plastic, that affects all the oceans. Of course there are problems with that, but I still think that it's a worthy goal of not touching 50% of the earth, just leaving it alone, just no humans allowed. Because that would actually go a really long way into mitigating what we are doing. Mary Jane, or those people that claim to love nature and feel entitled to go out in nature and build those rock towers. Right. I mean, look, I love nature, and I go out into nature all the time. I go hiking all the time. I go to the beach all the time. And I drive my car to go do these things. Like I do that human thing too. And I don't think, there's nothing wrong with doing that. I don't think there's anything wrong with doing that. I just think that there should be places that we shouldn't be able to go. or own or, parse up or build on or, or even fly over? What if there were like no fly zones over wilderness areas? What would that do for certain places on the planet, right? Like, what if there were just no air traffic, no nothing, no car traffic, air traffic? I mean, that's very different from a national park, which is like, here's this pristine part of nature, and everybody come on in. Drive your cars in. Pee in the woods. Feed the animals. Blah, 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 blue. Anyways, I just went off on that. I don't know. The dude says, I heard Derek Jensen say something that really struck me. Something like, once you make your allegiance to the living planet as a whole, instead of just humans or yourself or civilization. Yeah, I mean, on some level, like, it diminishes your self-importance if you do that. And I'm a self-important human. I'm totally self-important. I'm totally self-indulgent and self-involved. But I'm a little less than I used to be. And, understanding, every single day I understand how little I need, to really exist. Like, and the more I realize how little I need, the more I realize how little I want, and to not want things is just so like strange to a lot of people. Oh, you don't want to go out and buy all this stuff. I mean, I have plenty of stuff. I don't really want a lot of stuff. I've got so much stuff. I've got more stuff than I know what to do with. Excuse me. Guao Mashi says ownership began with the transition to agricultural production. The concept has grown out of control. Yeah. Sure. I own this land. I grow this food. This is my food. These are my cows. This is my thing. But there are such things as co-op, farms where here's the land and we all communally take care of these crops or take care of this land or take care of these animals, take care of each other. There's just a different way to think about it. Yes, Poppy Davis. The Native Americans had respect for and honored nature. And most indigenous societies, who we have done a really good job of stomping out, had, the way that they lived was in respect for, they were attuned with nature. They were in tune with nature. They were in tune with, the living world. They lived off the land. And they were not poor because, because Mother Nature gives you a bounty. Okay, so let me just read some articles. I know we've been talking a lot about this. Maybe we'll come back to it. It's kind of an ongoing situation. Obviously, there's an ongoing situation which is causing everybody to stay home. If we look at closed cases, which is, people who have recovered versus people who have expired, there's actually a rate of death of 12%. So that's worldwide. It's a pretty big percentage, much more than 1, 2, or 3. Just letting you know that. Where are we? Where's the actual thing I wanted to read? Darn it. So the title of this video, and maybe this is applicable to other political movements, but the one that's probably, and let me strike that, reverse that. The one that is the most important movement on the planet is the the destruction of the environment and the stoppage of that. Hopefully, the stoppage of that climate. So this is from Sky News. This is from it's actually from last year, October 8th, 2019. Climate protesters might be too polite to make a difference. Might be. The rain didn't help, but from Extinction Rebellion's point of view, it was more to do with numbers and impact. The anticipated 20,000 people on the streets of the capital didn't materialize, and while the impact of closed roads was definitely felt by anyone trying to drive anywhere in central London, the day somehow lacked the pace and scale that we saw in April. In the end, it was more Bob Marley than Rage Against the Machine. Don't forget, though, that Bob Marley made a difference. Actually, Bob Marley probably made way more of a difference than Rage Against the Machine. As far as spreading a message musically. There were certainly thousands out raising their voices in a chaotic and at times rather affecting mix of frustration, hope, and defiance. What's really shifted about the global climate change movement is that when it started, it was arguably a young person's gig, inspired as it was by schoolgirl Greta Thunberg. On Monday, the sheer age range of protesters was noticeable. I spoke to one grandmother out with her grandson who was blocking Lambeth Bridge and preparing to be arrested for the first time in her life. There were doctors, teachers, and apparently even some ex-policemen among those who turned up. Many people spoke with some tears in their eyes of the need to fight for the future of their children. Speaking of the police, it is worth saying that the interactions between officers and XR protesters were mainly characterized by good humor, common sense, and respect. I wish it could be more exciting than that, but it wasn't. I saw flapjacks being offered and politely declined. Plenty of good manners on both sides, and when I asked protesters about more than 100 arrests, most of them said they don't begrudge the police for doing their job. So the questions for and about Extinction Rebellion now is how far are they willing to go to make more of an impact? And will they judge more aggressive and more obviously criminal behaviors to be worth the potential risk of public support draining away? My feeling, having met and filmed with a good number of activists in the run up to this rebellion, is that they simply are not a group that will, on large scale, smash stuff up or provoke the police. It may be that small numbers of hardcore activists can cause localized trouble, but as a whole, they are too polite, too well behaved. What they are hoping for is to build numbers so that the scale of their nonviolent, peaceful mass civil disobedience can no longer be ignored. The problem is that if Monday is anything to go by, they don't have those numbers. This fortnight is the real test of a movement that sprang out of nowhere a year ago and seems to rise to become a force in public life. If they want to continue to being one, they need to make this rebellion count. I'm not sure it will in quite the way they imagined. And that's that. Very short, to the point. Well, so interesting point being raised and maybe being mirrored in the political world right now in the U.S. Many people are lamenting Bernie Sanders' lack of fight against the Democratic establishment. Sorry, we got the fire department coming. A lot of people are lamenting the lack of the fight in, and a lot of people are blaming, Bernie supporters for being angry people. They're all so angry. Oh my God. And again, this goes back to, if you're not being nice about what you want, then we don't want to listen to you. Well, the thing is that you're not going to listen to them anyways. This is a ruse. This is a way to get to basically respectability politic people down. So if you're not doing things in the way that society has told you that they must be done, then you should be ignored, and your demands should not be listened to, because you're too wild-eyed and crazy, and you're violent, you're mean, you're angry, you're disrupting the peace, you're disturbing the peace, you're hurting people. All that stuff, right? So, and then there's the quote that power has never conceded power willingly, right? So I think I'm paraphrasing. Power has never given up power on its own. It had to be forced in some way, shamed, forced. The civil rights movement was not, there were factions of it that used peaceful protest, but it was anything from, it was very far from nonviolent. There was plenty of violence in the civil rights movement. From the side that was in power, for sure. There was some violence from the other side that was demanding rights. But there was, the country was definitely in an uproar about, oh my God, these people demanding their rights. I mean, there was a lot of anger and emotion and violent clashes between both sides. And if I think the same could be said of what might need to happen in the face of climate change, even though here we are really reducing our emissions happenstantially, but I don't know. This author, excuse me, the author brings up a really good point. That if you're really willing to go to the mat, if you're really willing to disrupt society, if you're really willing to get in the way of business as usual, you're going to have to make people uncomfortable. Are people uncomfortable right now? You betcha. Are people like freaked out and scared and pissed off? You betcha. You're going to have to make people uncomfortable if you're going to actually affect any change. It's just the only way that it's ever going to happen. Osama, bonjour. No representation, says Kevin. You can't have a fight if election fraud continues, and Bernie won't have that fight. No, he won't. And I've heard other people, like Michael Tracy and some other people, saying like, there's no election fraud. You just have to face the facts and count the number. You just have to face the facts that Bernie lost. Okay. I mean, the reports are coming from all over the place. The fact that there were votes not counted in Texas was actually brought forward by actual election officials. So, like, these aren't people that are just making this shit up. They're not conspiracy theorists. This is actually real. Exit polls, he poo-pooed the idea of exit polls being off. No, they're actually off. And that counts for something. That actually means something. Anyways. Thank you. Proudhon, power never concedes power without a demand. That's exactly what I was trying to say. You knew what I was trying to say. Without a demand. Unions weren't formed because everybody, Because a bunch of people got together and said, hey, we need some unions. And then the corporations went, hey, yeah, sounds like a good idea. Good deal. You know, we debated it in public, in the public square, and everybody was like, all right. No, what happened was they went on strike. They shut these businesses down, and the police came in and beat people over the head with billy clubs, sometimes shot people just out, you know, people were put in the hospital, people died in a fight to form unions. Entirely up, you know, people went hungry, people starved, people, like, it was nasty and bloody and uncomfortable, right? But we live in a world now where it's like everything, you know, everything has to be comfortable and nicely, you know, debated, especially, you know, online, because these words are they're so traumatizing and so hurtful. Oh my God, you hurt me. You hurt my feelings. Fuck you. How about fuck your feelings? How about that? Fuck your feelings. You know? You know, love and peace to everyone, but if you're, you know, standing in the way of people actually getting, you know, food or help or being able to ask sometimes uncomfortably for things that, you know, you're unwilling to give them, then fuck your feelings. You coward. Anyways, whatever. CB Unglesby. Yeah, I know. Tracy is totally wrong. And he's still like, Tulsi's fine and she's great and for supporting Biden. I mean, he's stating the truth that she said she was going to support Biden. So, yeah, so she's doing what she said she was going to do. I guess we can applaud her for being a person of her word. And that's fine. I think it's fine. You know, she's a person of her word. That's what she said she was going to do. And you know, Bernie's going to support Biden too. If he drops out, he's going to support Biden. He's a person of his word. He said that he was going to do that. That's fine. I personally think both of them should not have ever made that pledge. Because if you say this system is corrupt and these people, the system is corrupt, these people are terrible people, I can't support their actions. You shouldn't say that you're going to endorse them or support them in the first place. That's where you blew it. You went wrong in the beginning. So whatever. So I don't agree with that. And personally, listen, the establishment, the DNC, the people in power are not people of their word. They're not people who are operating in a way that is, you know, that is on the up and up. They're not operating in an authentic manner. They're willing to lie, to smear, to bully, to use underhanded tactics. So, you know, nothing about what they're doing is honorable, right? So actually, Tulsi and Bernie are operating in an honorable way because they said, I'm going to do this, and then they did what they said they're going to do. They shouldn't have put themselves in that position in the first place because the establishment doesn't operate in an honorable way, so fuck them, right? And I would totally be fine with them saying, well, you know what? I did say I was going to support them, but it looks like they're cheating their asses off again. So they're completely dishonorable. So we're going to just go ahead and do what's best for the American people, which is run a third party or, you know, back Bernie Sanders or whatever. I don't know. But they shouldn't have done it in the first place. They should have never done that in the first place. Whatever. I disagree with the original, you know, intention to back whoever the person is. Whatever. Darren, if we continue to accumulate only power and not wisdom, we surely destroy ourselves. Quote from Carl Sagan. And I agree with you. No representation, nothing changes until you get election fraud reform. No third party will win until you change the election fraud. And I totally agree with that. What if a third party's main platform, or one of their main platforms, was reforming the election system? Demanding only paper ballots, demanding no only public funds, campaign funds, demanding an end to Citizens United, etc. Right? So if that was one of the main campaign platforms, I think that would be a great platform for a third party, right? Look, the third party runs and says the system is corrupt. We're going to have to change the system in order for these elections to even work fairly. Imagine how popular that party would be immediately. Right? Yes, and everyone said it. They could not run in the Dem primary unless you agreed. Right? So they trapped them before they could even start their campaigns. Which we now see is total bullshit. So whatever. All the hope we had of reforming the Democratic Party from within was whatever it was. Oh yeah, no, I know. You'd be running against the same people that are running YouTube, that are telling you that only 25 people are watching right now when it's actually probably 100. You'd be running against all those people. What people are watching your channel, bro? There's only 25 people watching your channel. You're totally like, nobody cares about what you have to say. Whatever. But anyways, I really appreciate you all being here with me. What are some other news items I wanted to cover today, or this morning, or whenever it is? What time is it? There's an interesting headline from a site called The Swamp. The headline is, Bernie Sanders has emerged as the de facto leader of the Democratic Party amidst the health crisis. Because, Joe is barely visible, and Bernie Sanders is at the forefront of leading, immediate help for Americans and not the bailout of the corporations. So, of course, yes, he's Bernie Sandersing. Bernie Sanders is going to keep on Bernie Sandersing. He raised $2 million for relief efforts for people suffering, Meals on Wheels and other relief efforts to help people get food. Right. His outspoken leadership is all the proof you need of who the actual person is that should be president. But the Democratic Party is so corrupt that they can't even admit, oh, geez, maybe Bernie Sanders should be the guy leading this, leading the Democratic response to the crisis, and, thus making him the face of the Democratic Party. They don't want to do that. They absolutely cannot have that happen. Here's another headline. Major airlines could go bankrupt by May, per analysis. That's why they're talking about bailing out the airlines. This is from last week. Excuse me, last week was a long time ago in the news cycle. Oh, and here's another headline which should absolutely frighten the shit out of Democrats. This is from The Washington Examiner, 3 polls give Trump's virus job a thumbs up. This is from 2 days ago. So in 1 week, Trump has turned his approval rating around. In the polls, Trump's approval rating for his handling of the pandemic is higher than his general approval rating, and one pollster said that could provide the president with an opening to improve his overall score. Trump's approval rating in this poll, overall 53%, handling of the crisis 56%, stimulating jobs 60%, the economy 60%, fighting terrorism 58%, immigration 53%, foreign affairs 52%. Administrating the government 51%. Yeah, so whatever, the Democrats could actually have somebody who has a higher approval rating in the polls named Bernie Sanders if they would actually push him out in front of this whole coronavirus response for the Democrats. The Democrats wouldn't look like the foolish right-wing party that they are. Ronald, how you doing? Prudhomme says Boeing was heading for bankruptcy before the current events. They fired their engineers. Now their planes can't fly. Right. Right. My dog is over here trying to flex at somebody. I don't know who. Yeah, so guys, real quick before I sign off, I'm about to sign off in a couple minutes, but go follow me on Twitter at Blackburn News, the number 1. And I will give you the time of my next live stream. So if you guys are not getting your notifications, please go do that now, and then so I can give you the time. I'll try and give you plenty of warning, so that you guys can know and you're not waiting for YouTube to send you a notification. And hope everybody is doing well in whatever situation that they're in, whatever quarantine situation they're in. How many days into this, and I'm a little bit off kilter as to what's happening and what to do next. So nobody really knows what's happening next. I do believe that today they are voting on some kind of relief package in the U.S. I haven't really got any substantial word on what actually happened or is happening, so that might be something to talk about later. The one thing I saw today, the one news headline I saw was that the Democrats are blocking whatever the bill is. So now the Democrats are like, no. I mean, the bill that the Republicans put forward is not really that great, or not great at all. So, I guess they have, they have good reason to block it, but I don't know that what they're proposing is substantially better. I don't know. I'll kind of try and gather a little more info on that, and then we can discuss later. I know that not everybody is in the U.S. Maybe not everybody cares about U.S. political happenings. Oh, let me cover this one last. This is a wild story. I'm going to link this in the description box. This is from The Sun, and this is from last week, I think. Is there a date on this? Yeah, March 13th. The title is called Monkey Nuts. Hundreds of ravenous wild monkeys terrorize a Thai city in search of food after the pandemic situation drives tourists away. So there's hundreds of monkeys that live in this city, and they rely on the tourists to give them food. And all the tourism went away, all the travelers went away. So these monkeys are overrunning the city looking for food. And it's really actually quite frightening because they're just... one onlooker says they looked more like wild dogs than monkeys. They went crazy for the single piece of food. I've never seen them this aggressive. The monkeys are very, very hungry. Apparently, so these monkeys need some immediate emergency food aid. What's the chances of getting something passed in the Thai House of Representatives or Parliament or whatever it is for some immediate emergency food aid for these monkeys? Anyways, I'm going to link that in the description box. So let me see. Osama, here's a quote. The administration is characterized by powerful and continuing expressions of nationalism, identification of enemies as a unifying cause, obsession with militaristic national security and military supremacy, interlinking of religion and the ruling elite, obsession with crime and punishment, disdain for the importance of human rights and intellectuals who support them, cronyism, corruption, sexism, protection of corporate power, suppression of labor, control over mass media, and fraudulent elections. These are the defining elements of fascism. That's a quote from one Guy McPherson. True story. True story. Boiled rope lampposts, never Biden. True story. All right, guys, I'm going to sign off. Thank you so much. I will text. I will put the link for the next live stream on my Twitter account and also here on the YouTube. So stay tuned. I should be back later tonight. Peace.